Looks like we're ready to go now. Welcome to everyone. I just wanted to mention that Jiti Sahota, our ministry advisor, is also joining us today, and welcome to her as well. I would ask if there's any declarations of interest at this time. Seeing no declarations of interest, just before we get into our agenda, the Canadian Forces Snowbird demonstration team had been on a 2-week tour of Canada called Operation Inspiration, which was meant to raise the spirits of a nation under pandemic restrictions. Tragically, one of their aircraft crashed in Kamloops, BC on Sunday, killing Captain Jen Casey and injuring Captain Richard McDougall. Please join me in a moment of silence for Captain Jennifer Casey. I extend our deepest condolences to her family and friends. Thank you. At this time, we'll move to the confirmation of the private meeting minutes from April 22nd. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Jennifer, and I'm not seeing everybody else here. Let me see. Ah, there we go.
I'll move it, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Item 3 is presentations. At this time, we do not have any presentations. Number 4 is deputations. I don't believe we have any deputations unless there's something that has changed most recently. Seeing no indications, we'll go down to communications. No communications at this time. Item number 6 is items for considerations, reports of the Chief of Police. And the first one, number 6.1, is notice of a civil suit. Any questions for the chief at this time? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mayor Bevilacqua, Vice Chair Molyneux, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item 6.2.
Mayor Haxon.
Yes.
Mayor Haxon, are you referring to the public agenda?
I think she's in the, might be in the private.
Sorry. Yes, thank you very much. I have to just going here. Thank you. All right, we'll get back to where we were. Not anxious, just moving along. Item number 3 is the confirmation of the public minutes, April the 9th. Page 2. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mayor Bevilacqua, Vice Chair Molyneux, all those in favor, and that's carried. Item number 4, confirmation of our minutes from April 22nd board meeting. That's page 4. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mr. Purchell, Mr. Molyneux, are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, and that's carried. Number 5 is presentations. We have no presentations at this time. Number 6, no deputations at this time. Number 7 is our communications, and 7.1 is correspondence from Christopher Rayner, our regional clerk, regarding our 2020 to 2023 multi-year accessibility plan. Questions, comments, presentations? Anybody want to speak on it? I'm not seeing anybody at this time. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Mr. Cooper. Ms. Fang. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Number 8, items for consideration, and 8.1 is the interim financial report from for the period ending March 31st, 2020. And Jeff, wonder if you could
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the board. And this is our regular quarterly financial update. However, it's not a regular report because it provides updates on the COVID-19 financial impact on YRP. And why don't I start by discussing the COVID-related costs. This is on a schedule. It's the third page as part of the schedules. And I'll just discuss that it's our incremental costs. So we've first looked at any unbudgeted. That's what this list relates to. And as of May 31st, at the bottom right, we are looking at an impact of about $1.15 million on YRP, unbudgeted, related to COVID-19. And I'll move up and talk to you. There are three sections to the schedule. The first is lost revenues. And the first and the fourth item relate to paid duty. And paid duty is an important revenue item to YRP. We have seen a drop of 37% drop in revenue. However, as we come back, as the construction season is reopened, it has been the first item to come back on our revenue screen. So you can see that our forecast for May is mitigating, and we should see almost a full comeback in the pay duty line items. That is not the case for vulnerable sector screening, where we've seen a 79% decrease, and the clearance letters an 89% decrease. And this is due to the March 14th closure of our community resource center. And we are uncertain how these types of line items will rebound with respect to coming back into normal. The pay duty administration and vehicle fees, this relates to the YRP portion of our pay duty business. And as you can see, it's dropped, but starting to come back. Other is a line item for various fees and charges. But alarm monitoring is also fairly highly impacted, as are auction proceeds, which we expect to be temporary, and other service fees and charges. So in total, we've been impacted on our revenue side of our business by just under $2 million. And it's the biggest significant piece to the COVID incremental costs for YRP. We have a number of direct costs incurred, and that totals about $691,000, led off from personal protective equipment. And these are three types of masks that we wear. This includes gloves, this includes hand sanitizers, eyewear, and items that are consumed by our frontline members. And that has totaled about $425,000 year to date. Facilities, supplies, and equipment, this has stepped up cleaning costs and related supplies. That's about $160,000 that we've incurred to date, as well as overtime. So initially upfront in the March planning period, we did have some significant overtime. That totals out to about $106,000 incurred to date. The total for this whole group is about $691,000. However, we've had a number of items from expenditures that have mitigated. So this is cost savings that we've either slowed or stopped due to the COVID. And this totals about $1.5 million. The first item is pay duty wage costs, and this is directly related to the very first row under lost revenue. So where we don't have the revenues, we also don't have the costs around pay duties. Procurement card is a number of expense account, but it includes office supplies, materials, fuel spending through procurement cards. All of these are significantly down with less activity. Civilian hiring has been slowed, not stopped, but slowed, and that has had some significant savings. Training and conferences, however, has been significantly impacted, and this has been a mitigating and a cost savings, as well as some fuel and fuel maintenance. We are driving fewer kilometers, incurring less costs, as well as canceled special events. So that group of mitigating is about a $1.5 million savings. The bottom line to this shows $1.1 million incurred to date, but the run rate, I think that's the important, is the run rate is about a $400,000 per month run rate for as long as this emergency lasts. So that gives us a guideline as to projecting out our year. However, I'm not exactly in the forecasting business on this report, other than to say our year end is at risk, and we are seeking additional mitigating measures, but we are looking at a deficit if this were to continue very much longer. So with that being said, I'll just touch on some of the rest of the report. It does speak about us being over budget, 25.2% spent on our operating side as of the end of March. And a lot of this is timing around CPP and EI payments. We typically are near or over in the first quarter, and some of these costs come out later in the year. However, we have had above plan overtime as well in our salary line item. But the rest of the items are, we're really doing quite well on the operating side. On the capital spending, we're 18.6% spent, and there's really nothing notable in that list other than are there COVID impacts on our upcoming capital plan? And there are. There are around the automotive production slowdown or shutdown, and we hope to be able to purchase all of the cars that we have scheduled this year, but it's not a certainty right now. The other item is the tender for our one district has been delayed by 6 to 8 weeks at this point, and we don't believe that that will have a material impact on the end date, which still continues to be end of 2021 for the one district building. With respect to the schedule of reserve balances, we're showing reserve balances at $11.7 million, and really there's not a lot to speak about. All three reserve balances are running as per plan. So that's my update. I'll certainly take any questions that you might have on the 2020 year or the COVID costs.
Thank you very much. Questions, Ms. Fang? I see you have a question. Are there others at this point? Mayor Emerson.
Yes, Cooper.
Mayor Emerson. Mr. Cooper, thank you. Okay, we'll start with Ms. Fang, please.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Jeff, for the update. Just a quick question on the pay duty. It looks to me, is that my understanding correct, that pay duty is like a flow through revenue and cost is actually net zero. So this is more as services that we provide to the communities. There's no actual financial implication to our budget. Is that correct? Unless besides the normal wage costs that we pay to our members that are on paid duty, if we incur overtime surcharge to our members, if those are not flow through to the community member that hire our pay duty service officers, then that would be our actual financial cost. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Ms. Fang, and through you, Chair. There are two different revenue items related to pay duties. Right you are. The flow-through part happens to be the top row for lost revenues, pay duty officer fees, and that's a flow-through with pay duty wage costs. So right you are, that does flow through. However, there's a portion that's YRP, which is the fourth line item down under lost revenues, and that's the pay duty administration. So the board charges a 22% service fee, as well as vehicle fees. And the current fee is around $35.70 an hour for vehicles. And those are revenue losses directly to the board as opposed to flow through.
Okay, thank you. And then I just couple quick questions on the first quarter expense. I'm just focusing on where there's significant over budget line items, and most of it you have provided explanation. And a couple other ones, although the dollar amount is not significant, but it's just of interest. One is the consulting services. What kind of consulting services we've had for this quarter that's significant over, please? And then the other one is the mileage reimbursement is way over. Is that like the normal quarter? We don't anticipate a lot of mileage in historically, but this first quarter, because of the pandemic, the mileage is just way over. And the other ones, I think the communication and computer software, those are just timing that we implemented new softwares and new vendors. So it's kind of front end loaded.
Thank you, Ms. Fang, and through you, Chair. I'll answer the question around mileage reimbursement. And there are a couple of travel related that are unbudgeted. And what we do is we incur the cost for meal allowances, travel fees, parking fares, and mileage reimbursements as they are incurred. We don't technically budget them in those same accounts. We do budget those costs. However, the offset is in training costs around in this account 10,000 and account 09,000, which is conferences and seminars. So what you're seeing here is really just unbudgeted, but overall we have offsets. And with respect to consulting costs, I'm looking that up as we speak. Maybe I'll take the next question as I'm consulting with my peer on those actuals.
Okay, thank you. Chair Emerson, please.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Was Ms. Fang done? Jennifer, you done?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Wayne.
Jeff, on page 3 of the attachment, you touched on it, the overtime incurred. So February was $1,000, and then March automatically jumped to 55,000. Then you must just you're just putting a number in for April and May, which is 25,000. I'm not sure it would equal. Not sure it'd be that flat, like right on that. So why did it jump from up to $55,000 in the month of March? I know COVID's there, but what really impacted that to make it $55,000?
Yeah, thank you. And it's we implemented our emergency management process, which engaged about 25 people across the organization. Acting Deputy Gosson is in the room with us, who oversaw the MISC. And that's primarily where those overtime costs, they are COVID-related overtime, and that's how we coded things. I will comment, working with the region, York Regional Police follow with the region, establishing new general ledger accounting and payroll codes to be able to track everything. So we're pretty comfortable that we're able to track these costs. And again, it was related all to our emergency management planning process, Chairman.
So the April and May at 25,000, that's just a rough number you're predicting, or is that right? Is that the number?
Yeah, the April number was right on 25,000. So we use that same estimate for May.
Okay. So just a comment, Madam Chair. We're all in this together, and there is a lot of cost going through. I think at the region, I know maybe some of you don't realize what the region does, but the region is $100 million by the end of the year that we may have to find. And I'm hoping that the York Regional Police will do what they can to keep their numbers down and not to go too far in the deficit, because obviously we'll have to cover that deficit. So whatever you can do from here on in going forward for the next 6 or 8 months, it's going to go longer. I would really appreciate it on behalf of members of council to find every dollar we possibly can and save every dollar. But we're predicting $100 million shortfall, and we're not sure what the province or the federal government's going to give us a nickel on this whole thing. So I'm just making a comment that we're all in together. So do what we can to help us through this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, if I could just comment on that. So Chairman Emerson, we are all in this together, and we agree. We have had some preliminary discussions on budget. We haven't actually started our meetings yet, but we've been having discussions with Jeff. We are fully aware of where we are and how this is going to impact everyone, and we will be doing our part as best we can to be as cost efficient as possible, knowing that we're losing about $400,000 a month. One other comment I wanted to make, and it relates to the customer service unit. As we all know, we did talk about pay duties a bit, but customer service is where a number of these expenses that we're losing, we would find. The customer service unit, we do not have a date yet as to when it will open, but it will more than likely be lock and step with the opening of our districts again, which we're having some active discussions around when that will be. I'm hoping, and we will never put anybody in jeopardy of safety, obviously, but I'm hoping that, for the benefit of everyone, that will be sooner than later. So, and once we know, we'll definitely let you know that. So those are my.
Just on the budget part, I think Jeff knows this. The region will not be looking at their budget until March of 2021 going forward. So we do have time with the budget because we need these numbers shaken. And we're hoping by November that the federal government and the province will make some announcements that will help municipalities going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, Jeff, in certain sectors, the government has asked organizations to keep track of any expenses incurred from COVID-19. Hopefully, with the anticipation of some type of reimbursement down the road. But certainly that hasn't been clearly stated. It's just that we've been asked to track. And I'm wondering if YRP has been asked if to track separately any expenses incurred from COVID-19 by the province or the feds.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cooper, and through you, Chair. The liaison with the province so far has been limited to personal protective equipment only. And that's really the only thing that they've asked for is the amount of supplies that we have on hand and what we project our future needs to be. As Chair Emerson has pointed out, there has been significant, and maybe I'll just reiterate, Bruce McGregor last week on Thursday, on May 14th, provided an update to council. And he spoke quite a bit about the lobbying effort that's going on right now. So it's not just the Canadian Federation of Municipalities and their claim of a $10 billion municipal ask. There's groups like the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the municipal and regional chairs of Ontario, Marco. You've got the large urban mayors, the LUMCO group, as well as many other, including local politicians on the call here who have made significant lobby efforts. And I think, as Chairman Emerson has quite correctly said, we don't have any real commitments from senior tiers at this point to discuss. There's been no announcements yet, although we're certainly engaged with the Solicitor General Ministry.
Great, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
Excuse me, Chair Hackman, it's Jeff. Just to answer Ms. Fang's question around consulting, the consulting that's been incurred to date has been technical related. So we utilize a company called Bannon Technology, and they're assisting with one of our capital projects, the implementation of our mugshot system, et cetera. So we have costs related to that. We also have costs related to Infotech. It's a firm that we utilize for market research around technologies. So those are the costs that have been incurred to date, but we do anticipate that line item to be on budget by end of year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're satisfied, Ms. Fang?
Yes.
Thank you. Very good. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 8.2, purchasing bylaw quarterly report.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. This is a pretty straightforward report related to 3 requests for tender. The first one from January relates to the purchase of 6 Ford motor vehicles, Ford Fusion sedans. The second one from January as well is for the provision of bottled water service from Culligan. And it's a 1-year contract plus 2 2-year options as well. And the last in February is the supply and delivery of various Ford vehicles. I'm have to assume from this because they're not listed as they would be our regular patrol vehicles. And unless there's any questions, that's essentially the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this report? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mayor Bevilacqua, Mr. Perto. Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Item 8.3, forfeited offense related property proceeds of crime.
Yes, good morning. Once again, this is a report related to civil remedies as well as all proceeds of crime and the net for York Regional Police for this year, or sorry, for the fiscal year ending at the end of March 31st, 2020 was $500,742. And during the period from April 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020, York Regional Police received a total of $13.3 million in provincial grant funding, and the proceeds of crime grant provided $180,000 of those dollars. So unless there's any specific questions around the dollar amounts, and that's the report.
Thank you. Questions from members of our board? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mr. Cooper, Chair Emerson, all those in favor? And that's carried. We're at item number 9, items for consideration, reports of the executive director. And the first one, 9.1, is public relations fund status, 2020 board donations. Are there any questions regarding this? Mayor Bevilacqua? You'll move it? Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Mr.
I have
Molyneux?
a quick question, please.
Thank you. I do not have all your faces up at the same time, so I'm sorry. I'm kind of jumping around to have everybody. Go ahead, please.
Virginia, I have a quick question, please.
Yes, go ahead.
The $3,000 that we pay to the Ontario Associations of PSB, now the meeting is canceled and switched to virtual meeting. Would that money being kind of serve as credit for next year's conference?
Good morning. I can speak to that, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Those funds will be directed to the AGM. Obviously, that's probably more than they need in comparison to a conference. They are looking to at options at this point, and if credit is an option, then they will let us know as to how the board wants to use those funds going forward. But I will come back in the future once OAPSB has determined some viable options, and perhaps credit is we thought we considered that, and I think I approached them about reusing that for a future conference or seminar. So they will come back and advise as to how they feel would be the best use of those additional funds.
Thank you. Mr. Molyneux, did you have a question?
I know the executive director answered it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chair.
Go ahead, please, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, it says here the chief's retirement dinner is scheduled for September 2020. So first, I just wanted to make a quick comment and thank Chief McSween for his extended service. And we look forward to his retirement party in September. And I was just wondering if there was a date yet for that.
Or, sorry, it's retirement? The date-
Not for McSween's retirement. That was a joke. Thank you for that.
Sorry, we lost your faces on the screen here, so.
Is there a date yet for our former chief's retirement party?
Oh, September 10th.
September 10th?
Tuesday? No, September.
Yeah, well, there is, just hang tight, we're gonna get that for you. It's
Okay, no problem.
September 15th.
September 15th is the tentative date. And obviously we know that as things unfold, we may have to move it back even more. And I think Karen Richards and her team are already looking at a second date, possibly in October or November, to potentially move it back even further if required. So we're trying to continue to plan it out so we can actually host an actual party, an actual get together. So.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if you're looking for a seconder, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Mayor Bevilacqua, you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I just since we're on this topic, I think that with the second wave coming, and all indications are that they will come in the fall. Personally, even in my own administration of the city, I'm more and more pushing things right into 2021. At least you pick a date that seems reasonable. I think in the fall, I must tell you that just speaking anecdotally just to people aren't going to feel very comfortable all of a sudden going back into public settings with a lot of people. I mean, just kind of keep that in mind. I mean, I'm sure that it's just like, let's not kind of get one date, then another one, then another one. I'd rather we kind of look at 2020 as a time that really these kinds of things aren't going to occur, and then move everything into 2021, just so that people can organize their lives essentially.
Yeah, we are, initially when this unfolded, we picked the second date thinking it wasn't going to be as prolonged like everyone else trying to plan. We haven't announced the second date for obvious reasons.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
But,
Thank you.
We are planning and continually monitoring that, and more than likely it will have to move, as you state, into 2021. Once we have another date, we're following the province obviously quite closely on that. So
Okay,
yeah, we're
thanks.
monitoring. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? I believe I have a mover and a seconder. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Item 9.2, Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Appointment to the Advisory Committee. And what we're looking for is a member of the board who would represent us at the Human Services Planning Board. Are there members of our board that might have an interest? Ms. Fang? You have an interest? Or anyone else that might have an interest?
You're muted.
I'm happy to volunteer myself if no one else.
Well, it would appear that it isn't going to be a contested race here. I'm not seeing anyone else. Mayor Bevilacqua?
Can I enthusiastically endorse her?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to second that endorsement, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And so with that, thank you very much, Ms. Fang, for stepping forward. I think it'll be very interesting for you. The Human Services Planning Board has been going a number of years. I sat on it many years ago and still have very fond memories of projects that we tackled and made a difference in our community. So I'm sure you'll enjoy that.
Jennifer, if I may, I just want to congratulate you on the hard-fought campaign for this appointment.
Very good, very good. And with that, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Do we have any other unfinished business at this time? I'm not seeing any. Do we have any other business at this time?
No. Jennifer had her hand up.
Ms.
I'm
Fang
sorry.
has her hand.
Jennifer has her hand up.
Thank you. I'm getting 4 tiles. That's all I have at a time. I'm sorry. So I'll just have to keep. Go ahead, Ms. Fang.
Thank you, Virginia. I just have a quick question. Jim mentioned we don't have a date for the community service center opening yet. And I think I've heard our courts will be reopened towards the end of May. So I'm just wondering if it makes sense. We kind of tie this public services opening around similar time. And also, Jim, you also mentioned our districts are yet to be opened. Did you mean the district office?
Yeah, so all of our districts, 1 to 5, still the front desks are closed. So members of the public can't go inside yet, but we're more than likely going to be looking to open them. We're starting to bring some of our staff back to work, rotating back in, the people that are working from home June 1st. So in all likelihood, we'll have some further conversations around the dates and lining them up with other dates of things we're doing. I'm not actually planning on aligning it with anything the courts are doing at this point, but more in line with what we're doing across the region. And that's a date that's on our mind as to a possibility to open everything in terms of starting to allow public access. So.
Okay, thank you. And along that same line of thought, I'm wondering, Wayne, from our regional office perspective, do you have any insight on those community services centers and public libraries? Is there any conversation on when those may be open?
I can't speak for libraries because I don't run libraries. That's run by the municipalities. The communities, like the
Enjoy.
we follow the lead of what the province is asking us to do. We've got nothing that on our radar right now to open anything
Okay.
because of what's happening. So you'll just have to wait. We will follow the lead of the province, and the province, once they give us the second wave of the say when they're going to open the next 2 weeks, they'll give us another idea what can open and what can't. So even our offices here at the administration offices, I'm not even looking even probably to September. We are bringing people back periodically, but we can't social distance them if we bring them all back. So we're working a lot from home. On the courts, Dan Kuzman's on the line. Dan, are we hearing that the courts are going to open up on the end of the month? I was not aware of that, but maybe I should have been.
Chairman, right now, there is no indication that they're going to open. The date that has been provided to us that the closure will extend to is July 2nd at least. So we're taking it day by day as further direction comes from the Ontario Court of Justice and the Ministry of the Attorney General.
So Jennifer, I don't know where you heard that the courts were going to open on May the 29th. That we're not hearing that, but maybe you have other information that we don't have. So that's what we're hearing from the province. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just say, I get weekly updates from the courts and from the local York Region Law Association. And yesterday's update was that the Newmarket Courthouse would be continuing to work remotely, and there's no scheduled physical reopening date as of yet.
What about the York, the Highway 7 High-Tech Street Court?
I think all courts are basically dependent on where the Ontario Court of Justice is going and the Ministry of the Attorney General. And so far, although criminal court is taking some judicial pretrials and doing bails and doing some resolutions, all of those are being done by teleconference. Otherwise, the courthouse itself is not doing any in-person sessions. And there's no further update from the ministry with respect to that.
Okay, I can share my private source of info privately with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, I'm just wondering, when we do open up our stations, will there be any type of screening procedures for members of the public who are coming into the stations in order, obviously, to protect our officers?
Yeah, well, we have been talking about some screening procedures, like physical distancing is already in place if the need arises for when we do open. But in all likelihood, what would happen is we would provide the front desk personnel that may have to interact with members of the public with all of the necessary PPE, as well as some of the locations we are having conversations around the installation of plexiglass, and some of the front desks already have glass installed already, if not all of them. I don't think all of them have it yet, but at the end of the day, all of those necessary precautions would be taken for obvious reasons. We're not going to subject our people to any issues in relation to that. So,
thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Purcell. You're muted.
Have you got an update or an overview on impact on personnel, either physical, that is illnesses, or psychological in terms of stress, in terms of ongoing operations?
Robert, do you have that? Do we have?
We don't have another stress.
We don't have, I don't know if I can comment on the numbers of people here. Perhaps privately we can have a conversation on it, but that have been infected.
We have it here.
We have it?
We've got the updated one from this morning.
Okay, so we'll provide that in the private session, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
The second question is, have you seen a rising impact in terms of domestic violence issues?
Yes, in general, yes. Domestic violence, stolen vehicles, there's a number of different areas, stunt driving in particular, but domestic violence specific to your question has increased, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper?
Nope, nothing here.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
All good.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else yet. And so at this point, then we would move to our private session. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Vice Chair Molyneux and Mr. Cooper, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And I know we need a few minutes. I believe Jacqueline will let us know when we are actually in private.
Yeah.